The Siena Cathedral, dedicated to the Virgin Mary, is the symbol of art and Sienese culture. With its white and green marble covering the whole building, the cathedral represents the Tuscan Romanesque Gothic style. The lower part of the facade, decorated with a magnificent sculptural cycle, was constructed between 1284 and 1297. The work was overseen by Giovanni Pisano, followed by Camaino di Crescentino in 1299, who directed the work until 1317. On August 23, 1339, the General Council of Siena approved the expansion of the Cathedral of Siena. According to the project, the existing church would become part of the transept of the new Duomo, and the nave would be constructed where sits today Piazza Jacopo della Guercia. But the Black Death in 1348 spared not even Siena. The work to enlarge the cathedral was suspended, and today this medieval project is visible only in the so-called facciatone, ugly facade, and the outline of the nave, facing northeast, which has hosted the Museo dell'Opera since the 19th century. On the outside, the Siena Cathedral conserves numerous masterpieces from over the centuries. The pavement is exceptional for a variety of reasons. Giorgio Vasari once wrote of it, "the most beautiful, largest, and magnificent that was ever done." Starting in the 14th century, it was finished in the 1800s. The preparatory drawings of the 56 inlay marble panels were designed by important painters and sculptors, all Sienese except for Bernardino di Beto, also known as Pinturicchio, who created the marble panel Hill of Virtue in 1505. We can admire paintings by various artists on the altars throughout the naves, among which stand out those of Sienese Mannerists. On the fourth bay of the left aisle is the Piccolomini altarpiece. In 1481, the Cardinal Francesco Piccolomini Tedeschini, nephew of the humanist Pope Pius II, commissioned the Lombard sculptor Andrea Bregno to construct the majestic family chapel. Bregno conducted work on the facade, and Michelangelo himself is attributed with the 4 sculptures inserted in the niche on the first 2 levels. In spring 1501, the gifted artist was asked by Cardinal Tedeschini with sculpting the altarpiece's statues. The agreement, however, was not fulfilled. By the end of the 3rd year, the young master had only completed 4 of the 15 sculptures previously agreed upon. Cardinal Francesco Tedeschini Piccolomini gave the Umbrian painter Pinturicchio the commission of decorating the Piccolomini Library, a place of utmost importance for the cycle of frescoes representing the life of Pius II. Pinturicchio and his workshop worked on the precious frescoes between 1503 and 1508. 10 scenes are depicted, among which is one narrating Emperor Frederick III presented with Eleanor of Portugal at the Porto Camolia in Siena. The radiant grotesque vault presents a series of allegorical figures, scenes of pastoral life, and the Bacchanalia. At the center of the room, we can admire the marble Three Graces, a Roman copy of the Hellenistic original, while along the walls, inside a glass case, is a series of choir books, whose miniatures are the work not only of 15th century Sienese artists, but also of Liberale da Verona and Girolamo de Cremona, both called to work in Siena in the second half of the 1400s. Beside the library is the chapel of St. John the Baptist by Giovanni di Stefano. It was commissioned to the artist in 1482 by the rector Alberto Aringhieri to conserve the reliquary of the arm of St. John, which was donated in 1464 by Thomas Palaeologus, despot in Morea, to Pius II, who in turn gave it to the Siena Cathedral. The chapel home is Donatello's St. John the Baptist, a bronze statue made late in the artist's career. Gaze up and one discovers the magnificent hexagonal dome supported by 6 pillars, above which are the large gilded stucco statues by Giovanni di Stefano, representing a pantheon of Sienese saints. Under the dome is one of the most important spaces in the church, the central marble inlay hexagon with the stories of Elijah and Ahab, begun in 1519 by the great Mannerist artist, Master Domenico Beccafumi. A little past the dome, on the left side of the presbytery, is the pulpit of Nicola Pisano, sculpted by the master between the end of 1265 and November 1268, with the help of his son, Giovanni, and Arnolfo di Cambio. The parapet contains scenes depicting the Nativity, the adoration of the Magi, presentation of the temple, and flight into Egypt. The parapet contains scenes depicting the Nativity, the adoration of the Magi, presentation in the temple, and flight into Egypt, the massacre of the innocents, the crucifixion, and the Last Judgment. This last one is divided into 2 parts. On one side are the blessed, and on the other the damned, separated by Jesus Christ as judge. To the right of the presbytery, immediately after the bell tower, is the chapel of Madonna del Voto, or the Chigi Chapel, commissioned by Chigi Pope Alexander VII and designed in the Roman Baroque style. In 1660, the Sienese Benedetto Giovinelli Orlando designed the circular chapel around the late 13th century canvas painting of Madonna and Child by Dietisalvi di Speme. The Virgin is venerated as a patron of Siena, and the people turn to her in both their private and public lives. The painting is surrounded by an elaborate frame, executed by the Roman Gian Lorenzo Bernini, made of golden bronze and held up by 2 angels. In fact, in 1661, the internal decoration of the chapel was entrusted to the sculptor, who, in 1663, brought from Rome the 2 marble statues as the niche on either side of the entrance. The 2 works represent Saint Jerome, recognized as one of the great masterpieces from Bernini's later stage, and Saint Mary Magdalene in mystical ecstasy. Created in the 1530s by the Sienese artist Baldassare Peruzzi, the high altar is home to a collection of important works in bronze. In the center sits the bronze ciborium by Lorenzo di Pietro, known as Vecchietta, a magnificent object of metalworking executed between 1467 and 1472. On either side are 2 bronze angel candelabra holders, realized by Giovanni di Stefano, which are paired with 2 more angels below, forged by Francesco Giorgio Martini. Included in the bronze works contained in the cathedral is also a series of 8 angels by Domenico Beccafumi, executed between 1548 and 1551, and placed against the pillars near the altar. The decoration on the choir was undertaken by Domenico Beccafumi, starting in 1535. The artist painted the Ascension of Christ in the vault over the apse, while below he depicted the apostles, inside 2 illusionistic windows. The decorative phase of the area around the presbytery finished in around 1609, when Ventura Salimbeni was tasked with adding 4 large frescoes representing the blessed Ambrogio Sansedoni presents Siena to Pope Gregory, the fall of Mana, the story of Esther and Ahasuerus, and Saint Catherine with Sienese saints and the blessed. Under the frescoes is the extraordinary wooden choir, the result of a collective effort realized between the 14th and 16th centuries. In the second decade of the 1800s, the Archbishop Antonio Felice Zondaderi had installed in the backrests of the 13th century benches the inlaid mirrors by Fra Giovanni da Verona, made between 1503 and 1505 and coming from the Abbey of Monte Oliveto Maggiore. The cathedral also has several exquisite windows. The most important is that of Duccio di Buoninsegna, once located above the apse. It was recently transferred to the Museo dell'Opera and substituted by a copy. The 30 square meter stained glass window, measuring 6 meters in diameter, depicts the burial, Assumption, and the crowning of the Virgin, as well as Siena's 4 patron saints and the evangelists.